Airbus and Boeing have been competing head-to-head for decades as the world's largest commercial airplane makers.
And the company canceled a new system that would have tracked employees at some of Boeing's offices.
For over a century, Boeing has ruled the skies. It was more than a brand, it was aviation, a symbol of American innovation, precision engineering, and reliability. From the iconic 747 to the workhorse 737, Boeing aircraft carried millions of passengers every single day, earning the trust of airlines and flyers across the globe. But something shifted, quietly at first, then suddenly and unmistakably. The same airlines that once stood behind Boeing are now stepping back. Emirates, Qantas, and KLM, the elite, the loyal, the premier league of global aviation, have taken a decisive turn. They're not just shopping elsewhere, they're reshaping the future by choosing Airbus. It's not a marketing shift. It's a rupture in one of aviation's oldest alliances. And it didn't happen overnight. It began with high hopes and broken promises. Emirates, long seen as Boeing's crown jewel customer, had built much of its prestige on the back of long-range Boeing jets. Their partnership seemed rock solid until the delays began. Boeing's much-anticipated 777X, billed as a next-generation marvel with folding wingtips, bigger passenger capacity, and fuel-saving innovations, was set to define the future of long-haul aviation. Emirates planned its business growth around this flagship release, but year after year, promises turned into apologies. The first delivery, originally set for 2020, was delayed, then delayed again and again. Emirates President Tim Clark, never one to speak lightly on industry issues, expressed open dissatisfaction. The airline didn't just take Boeing's delays as a setback, it took them personally. Their massive investment in the 777X was now a stranded asset, a plan grounded before it even took off. And so, Emirates looked elsewhere. They turned to Airbus, a manufacturer they had once kept at arm's length. They ordered the A350, a direct competitor to Boeing's delayed aircraft. It wasn't just a backup, it was a redirection of loyalty. When an airline like Emirates pivots to Airbus, it doesn't do so out of curiosity. It means patience has run out. Boeing's delays weren't just about logistics, they were about breaking a bond of trust. Meanwhile, halfway across the globe, a similar story was unfolding. Qantas, Australia's flagship airline, had long relied on Boeing's 737s for its regional and domestic routes. The 737s were practically woven into the fabric of Australian air travel. But as the airline began planning the next decade of its fleet, it made a choice few saw coming. Qantas selected Airbus, not Boeing, for its narrow-body replacements, placing monumental orders for the A321XLR, a game-changing aircraft with the ability to travel longer distances using far less fuel. This wasn't just an upgrade, it was a message. Qantas, a conservative and highly analytical airline, saw in Airbus what it no longer saw in Boeing: dependability. And then there was Project Sunrise, a bold initiative to fly passengers non-stop from Sydney to London or New York, routes once considered impossible. Boeing had vied strongly for this order, offering a variant of the 777. But Qantas chose the Airbus A350 instead. Why? Because Airbus could not only deliver the aircraft, but deliver them on time. Once again, reliability tipped the scales. While Emirates and Qantas were vocal in their shifts, another carrier was making quieter moves: KLM, the pride of the Netherlands, and a historically strong Boeing partner. Walk through any European airport and you'd see their signature blue Boeing jets taxiing in and out, evidence of a decades-long partnership. But behind the scenes, a silent transition was underway. KLM, through its umbrella group Air France-KLM, began investing heavily in Airbus's A320neo and A321neo for future fleet expansions. These weren't small fleet tweaks, they were structural changes. KLM didn't issue flashy press releases or announce any abandonment, but their fleet orders told the story. As Airbus gained prominence within the group, Boeing found itself increasingly sidelined. These aren't isolated deviations. When airlines across continents start making the same decision, pivoting away from a manufacturer once seen as untouchable, it's a sign of something seismic. A shift that doesn't just hint at internal disappointment, it reveals a deep fracture in the manufacturer's-airline relationship. And at the center of this industry-wide reevaluation stands Boeing. The problems from Boeing's side didn't begin recently. They're rooted in years of mounting pressure, quality control issues, and a revolving door of leadership that failed to fix what was clearly broken. The 777X delays were only one symptom. Simultaneously, issues around the 787 Dreamliner began to emerge. For years, it had been considered one of Boeing's success stories, a fuel-efficient wide-body jet that made ultra-long-haul flying feel effortless. But beginning in 2019, flaws began to surface. Microscopic cracks, misaligned fuselage sections, and improperly installed fasteners led to a halt in deliveries. What followed was a string of disruptions that shook airline confidence. Production hiccups became production halts. The FAA found oversight lapses, and several batches of Dreamliners were grounded for inspection. Then came a tragedy that no one in the aviation world wanted. In mid-2025, a Boeing 787, operated by Air India, crashed shortly after takeoff. Over 240 lives were lost. It was the first fatal accident involving a Dreamliner, and while investigations were ongoing, the psychological impact on both consumers and airline partners was immediate. It's impossible to shake such news. It not only reopened wounds from the 737 MAX crises, but also reignited questions about Boeing's manufacturing integrity. But that wasn't the only blow of the year. In late 2024, over 30,000 workers, key machinists across Boeing's facilities, went on strike. For months, production of the 737, the 767, and the 777X was frozen. Boeing responded with layoffs. More than 17,000 employees were cut, and morale within the organization crumbled. Airlines, watching all of this unfold, had to make hard choices. They had routes to open, demand to meet. They couldn't wait for Boeing to figure things out. So they looked to Airbus. And Airbus? They were ready. Unlike Boeing, Airbus continued delivering aircraft on time, pushing out new variants like the A321XLR and the A35090ULR precisely when airlines needed them. At the 2025 Paris Air Show, Airbus walked away with close to $21 billion in new aircraft orders, signed with buyers from all over the world. Boeing, on the other hand, pulled back their senior leadership after the Dreamliner crash, focusing instead on damage control. The airlines weren't just buying aircraft. They were buying consistency, silence over scandal, delivery over delay. Airbus wasn't perfect, but in a world where time is money and reputation is everything, they were proving far more dependable. And the momentum spread. Smaller carriers took notice. Low-cost airlines in emerging markets turned to Airbus. Wide-body customers like LOT, Lufthansa, and even Middle Eastern upstarts began inking Airbus deals. Manufacturing capacity was filling fast, and Airbus was now a bottleneck, not Boeing. That had never happened before. What does this shift mean for you as a passenger? More than you might initially think. New aircraft bring quieter cabins, more fuel-efficient travel, and longer non-stop routes. Flights that might have once required layovers, say Madrid to Washington or Rome to Boston, can now be operated point-to-point using narrow-body jets like the A321XLR. This changes everything for passengers. Comfort improves, schedules get tighter, and more cities connect directly. But there's a flip side. With one manufacturer unable to deliver planes on time and the other nearing capacity limits, a looming shortage gives airlines fewer options to expand. Ticket prices could start rising, not due to inflation or fuel, but simply because the jets aren't available quickly enough to meet demand. In a response that came later than many had hoped, Boeing finally acknowledged the scope of the problem. With a new CEO, Kelly Ortberg, at the helm, the company launched a sweeping recovery initiative with a war chest of $21 billion. Not just for PR, but for root and branch reform. AI-powered inspections were introduced for assembly. Production lines were restructured. Quality audits weren't just tightened, they were made publicly reportable. Internal culture changed too. New safety protocols, anonymous reporting hotlines, and a renewed focus on transparent communication gave many within Boeing a cautious sense of optimism. Ortberg even launched a policy of monthly updates to airlines outlining delivery timelines, safety program progress, and technical improvements. But trust, in aviation as in life, is a fragile thing. For Boeing, the path to redemption is filled with the ghosts of missed deadlines and newsrooms filled with stories of avoidable tragedies. Airlines say they're still open to Boeing, but only if the company proves itself consistently, quietly, and quickly. Some orders remain in place, but many are being reviewed. Others face deferral or cancellation if deadlines slip again. Airlines are bracing for a long recovery, and Boeing has no choice but to show and no longer tell. The aviation world is recalibrating. Once seen as an unshakable duopoly, the balance between Boeing and Airbus is now tilting. In 2024, Boeing delivered barely half the aircraft Airbus did. In 2025, Airbus aims to deliver over 820 aircraft, while Boeing struggles to clear its backlog and meet its revised target of 450. The skies have a new rhythm now, one shaped not only by wings and engines, but by trust, timing, and consequence. And yet, this might not be the end of Boeing's story. It may be its most important chapter. A moment of reckoning that defines not just how the company competes, but how it earns its place back in the sky.